Thanks, Emily. And please step in if there's any audio issues. Had a little static earlier. Jason, be ready to hand off if it does get. Again, thanks, guys, and good afternoon. I'm Ryan Nance, board member and director of economic development for North Carolina Electric Cooperative. Happy to have you join us for today's webinar, Refocus: How North Carolina's tourism and outdoor recreation industries are fighting the pandemic. Let's start by thanking ECF Southeast, our presenting sponsor. ECF is a strong partner of our organization, and we thank them for their support. We also have many annual sponsors out there that support NCEDA, our mission throughout the year. You'll see these company logos on your screen now, and thank each and every one of them for their continued support. As you'll recall, NCEDA hosted several small regional luncheons, first 2 weeks in October. These luncheons, of course, followed all the COVID safety protocols, and I had an average of about 20 in attendance at each one. So members who attended were happy to get back together, socially distanced, of course, and see a lot of familiar faces. Again, we're lucky to have 2 of the partners from EDP&C tour us around the state for those luncheons. Whit Tuttle, Amy Allison joined us at all 4 to give important updates on tourism and the outdoor recreation industry. We had such positive feedback that we asked them to partner for a webinar for the folks that just couldn't make any of those luncheons due to capacity or other logistical constraints. Again, North Carolina tourism and hospitality industry has been ground zero in the COVID-19 economic crisis. As of August, employment in our leisure and hospitality service sectors was down more than 25% at the same time back in 2019, in 29,000 jobs. Hope is on the way. Last month, the U.S. Golf Association announced a major new presence in Pinehurst that will bring major pro tournaments to North Carolina over the coming decades, giving an obvious boost to our outdoor recreation and sports tourism industries. And just a couple of weeks ago, Triple Alt Design, California-based venture beer company, announced plans to create 70 jobs in McDowell County, where it'll manufacture and market cutting-edge outdoor apparel and equipment. Congrats, McDowell County and the region in the western part of the state. So where do we go from here, and how do we get there? Our 2 presenters today will offer some perspective on that. I'd like to now invite fellow board member Jason McLeod. Take the virtual podium, Jason. You represent ECS, today's sponsor. We'll tell you a little bit about ECS and introduce our presenters. Thanks, Jason, and ECS's generous support in NCEDA. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Ryan. Good afternoon, everybody. Greetings from coastal North Carolina. I know we're talking tourism today, and fishing is fantastic down here this time of year. So I see lots of boats being trailered down I-40 to come visit us in Wilmington. It's great to be with everyone today, and although we can't be in person and see everybody's smiling faces, it was great to see all the names in the attendees list that Liz sent out prior to the start of this webinar. Before I introduce our presenters, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of ECS. We are a proud partner with NCEDA, and our company, ECS, is your trusted partner in site due diligence and geotechnical engineering. And we're so proud of the partnership that we have with so many of our local EDOs and our state and regional partners throughout the state of North Carolina. Let's get started with our program. Whit Tuttle is Vice President for Tourism and Marketing at EDP&C, a post he's held since 2014. He oversees the marketing and of North Carolina tourism, film, and sports development. Whit is a veteran of North Carolina tourism promotion, having started out as PR director for the North Carolina Division of Tourism in 2006. Prior to the founding of EDP&C, Whit was executive director of the North Carolina Commerce Department's Division of Tourism, Film, and Sports Development. In 2019, Amy Allison was named director of the North Carolina Outdoor Recreation Industry Office. That just sounds like a fun job, Allison, or Amy, excuse me, Miss Allison. A unit of the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. Amy is responsible for marketing the state's outdoor recreation industry, which generates $28 billion in consumer spending each year. Prior to her current role, Amy was marketing director for Asheville-based Eagles Nest Outfitters and was co-founder of Outdoor Gear Builders of Western North Carolina, a collaboration of outdoor product manufacturers. We're grateful that Whit and Amy have agreed to be with us to share perspective with NCEDA members on where tourism and outdoor recreation stand in North Carolina right now. Understanding that in some communities, these industries may be the only viable strategy for business development and job growth. Please join me in welcoming our speakers. Whit will kick things off for us. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Jason. I appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. Happy to be here. If you've got me on speaker view and you've got a big screen, I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm filling up the whole screen, but hopefully you'll take a look at our presentation as we go through sort of the state of tourism in North Carolina. It has been ground zero. This, of course, is something none of us have ever seen before in the tourism industry. I've been in tourism for 30 years. And this has been really a fascinating thing to see. Part of my job as the director of the tourism office is to lobby the legislature for funding for tourism marketing in the state. And so I have to try and tell them what the state would be like without tourism. That's always been a challenge in the past, but now I think we're all getting sort of a feel for what life is like without travel. And obviously it's not a good thing. Of course, as the guy said earlier, we were ground zero. North Carolina was losing about $1 billion a month in visitor spending. Our business dropped about 58%. We just hit a wall. We have lost so far, and I just got an updated total on this, $8.6 billion in visitor spending so far because of COVID-19. That's a huge amount, and just to bring it home a little more even, that's about $300 million in state tax revenues that are just gone, and nearly $200 million in local tax revenues. And those are funds that are going to have to be made up somehow. It hasn't been an even loss. There are areas in the state that are actually doing better than they did last year. We're seeing leisure travel continue, particularly for outdoors destinations, beaches in the summer, and now a lot of mountains in the fall. So it's been a really uneven attack against this sort of, but we're trying to manage it the best we can. You can see here in this bottom chart, the yellow dots that was the hotel occupancy last year, and the green dots are this year. It's basically going to be a long, slow climb back to where we were. So for the next slide, I want to show you guys some what Oxford Economics and Tourism Economics thinks is the projection for when things will be back, and it's really not until 2023. As you can see, we've gotten some leisure travel back now, but we're not seeing business travel. We're not seeing meetings, international travel, those things like that. The hope is for them to come back in 2021. Now it's looking like it might even be later before we get those types of things. And then probably the last things to come back are those large scale events, meetings, and things that really bring a lot of revenue to the state, because those are the peak times when you can charge the most. So that's really impacting the industry. But I wanted to show you guys some things we do. We've done research now every week with a national company that gets traveler mindset to try and figure out where people's heads are, to determine when we can really advertise to them and how we can advertise to them and how we can talk to them. We stopped our advertising as COVID hit in March, and we really haven't done a lot of inspirational advertising since then. So on the next slide, you'll see that the key for us is funding. And what happens is the state's tourism marketing is mostly done by local tourism offices. We only make up about 4% of the North Carolina travel marketing that's done here in the state. Local tourism offices make up about 96% of that. And they are mostly all funded on occupancy taxes, which are hotel taxes, and those are gone. So there's a huge crisis in our industry in the ability to market the state once people are ready to travel, and to people who are ready to travel now. So we were fortunate. We were awarded $15 million in CARES Act funds from the legislature to do a recovery and a safety messaging campaign. And then we were also fortunate the NC Travel Industry Association was able to secure $1.5 million in grants for those local tourism offices that we've administered to try and allow them to be able to do some marketing to get people back. But before we did any of that marketing, we wanted to do some research. So we've done weekly research, and the next slide will show you what some of the results are. And many of you think, and I understand some people think we've gone too fast, we've gone too slow, the restrictions are too tight, the restrictions are not enough. One of the things we've noticed is there's a lot of fear out there. And what people have said is that they will not travel to places that have had COVID outbreaks or hot spots. And not only have they said that, but a lot of them have said they won't go even after those hot spots are over. And I think New York's a great example. New York City had a big outbreak, then they got it well under control, but the travel didn't return because people still perceive that as a problem. And what we're seeing with visitors and their reactions and their mindsets is really they're listening to this through the media. So when the media talks about a second wave coming this fall, we see travel intent go down once again, just because people have heard in the media that it's getting worse, whether it's getting worse where they're traveling to or where they live or not. People are responding to that because they see it in the media. There are a couple of positive trends though that are out there, and so the next slide I'll show you. We'll talk about that. One of the things is workcation. So a fascinating thing we've seen is that while hotels and general travel are down, vacation rentals are up pretty significantly. Airbnb, VRBO, and your traditional vacation rental management through a vacation rental management company, those are all up. And I think once again, it's fear. People feel safer in rentals than they do in commercial lodgings. And one of the trends we're seeing with them is that they're not just up. One of the reasons they're up is because the length of stay is tremendous. People are booking month-long stays and week-long stays like never before. And there are two trends we think that are causing that. One is a thing called a workcation. I hate when we make up these languages in marketing, but we've done it. As many of you are doing, and we're doing this call now, people are working remotely. And when you're working remotely, it doesn't mean you have to be in your home. You can be at a vacation spot. You can be there and do your work during the day and have fun at night. We've seen a lot of people doing that. And the other trend that we've seen, which is on the next slide, is called a schoolcation. People are doing remote schooling. A lot of people, even though schools are coming back in a lot of places, there are approximately 40% of the students where I live that are doing remote schooling. And so if you're doing remote schooling and remote working, you can have the whole family down at a vacation destination rather than being at your house. So I think this is a marketing opportunity for places in that they can get those people to go to places maybe where they don't work, where the jobs aren't right now, but where they want to be. So we're working with a lot of our partners to try and get that messaging out there of those e-communities that have formed up around the fact that everyone can telework. And that's a really important trend. We'll go into one more slide and show this really, I think, is the key. The people were asked, what is the one word you think of when you think of travel in March? And it was scared was the number one word. It was fear. We saw a lot of fear in people. We've tried for several months to get people to feel that they can travel safely. We're still dealing with fear, and we see it pop up even more now. This bottom one was done October 2nd, and with a second wave coming, there's still a lot of unsafety and hesitancy out there. We are seeing some better, excited, good, cautious, ready words like that coming up. So it has gotten a little better, but we still have to deal with a lot of that fear. So one last thing that I think it is really a positive is if we can get people to travel, what we found is that they're more confident that they can travel safely. People are afraid of getting sick, getting their loved ones sick, or getting other people sick. But we've found that if people travel and they do it in the right way, they build up some confidence that they can get it done without getting themselves sick or getting their loved one sick or getting someone else sick. So our campaign right now has all been focused around traveling safely and doing the things you need to do to be able to do some travel, but to do it in the right way. So we have a pledge program. It's called Count on Me NC. You can see on the next slide. It's all about visitors making pledges that they're going to behave in the right way. If they're sick, they're not going to travel. And it's also about businesses saying that they're going to do things in the right way. Businesses pledge to do things the right way, and there are 5 different courses people can take. These are free courses, COVID safety courses that are on the Count on Me NC site. You can take one of the 5 there and be Count on Me NC certified. The first 3 are really for have to deal with food preparations, but the 4th and the 5th ones are on general cleaning. And so I think they're good for any type of business that wants to get involved, not just a tourism business, but any business that wants to show that they've gone that extra step to ensure that they're going to protect their clients. And so we have a spot on our website where people can go, countonmenc.org, and they can see businesses that have taken these programs. We've had 300,000 people come to the site so far to look at those programs and to find out those safe places where people can go. So our focus really to get people traveling again is to get them to believe they can do it in a safe way to get that travel started again. So we hope to continue doing that until we've changed the mindset to a certain extent. So we can go one more slide, and Liz had asked me what were the things we could all do to work together with business development people as well as tourism development people. I think any business can join the Count on Me NC program. If you sign up for it and you qualify, you get a sticker, and you get some, you're eligible to get all the social media stickers and things like that. And you can show to your clients that you care and you're doing things the right way and you're taking all the steps possible. Another thing I think people can do that really would help is repeat your area's tourism industry messaging. We've lost a lot of our marketing power across the state. And if you can take what your local tourism office is talking about and spread that word, I think it'd be very beneficial for you, not just from a tourism stance, but also from a business stance, because people come to your community and realize they can work from there. That's, a chance to build up some workforce. I always ask people to encourage local companies to host their meetings and any other seminars they do in North Carolina. There's nothing worse than seeing a North Carolina company or group have a meeting in South Carolina or somewhere. So please, at this time, as companies start back to meeting and doing in-person events, please try and have people do them in North Carolina. And then I also think this is a time when business development is suffering from trying to find workplace. The tourism industry has just shed nearly 100,000 jobs. I think let's hope we can work to get those people to migrate into those business positions. Tourism industry, we typically get people for their first job, their last job, or some job in between. We'll find our workforce, but this might be a real opportunity to shift some of those bodies into that much more needed area of workforce for business development for the state. And so if we all work together and do that, I think that would be very helpful. Okay, one last thing we did, and this relates to Amy, who's speaking next, is we found a lot of people wanted to go to the outdoors and who had never gone to the outdoors before. So we wanted to make sure they did it in the right way, they did it in a safe way, and they did it in a way that helped prevent any damage to the outdoor resources or people, doing anything that could cause harm to themselves. So we teamed with Leave No Trace and we formed a program called Outdoor NC. Amy's been very involved in that. And it's really about getting people outdoors in a safe way and getting this spread out across the state and go everywhere in the state to help people get outside, be safe, but also recreate as well. So we're really excited about that because I think outdoor is the key to our coming out of this quickly. And that's what Amy is going to talk about next. So please welcome Amy Allison.
All right, thanks, Whit, and thanks for everybody for participating today, and Jason and Ryan for that great introduction. As Jason suggested, that my role as a director for the North Carolina outdoor recreation industry sounds like a fun role, and it really is, just because of all of the industry that we get to work with across the state. It's fun. It's super busy right now, just as everyone is, though. So just to give kind of a little framework for the industry in the state, the outdoor recreation industry is a $28 billion industry in the state of North Carolina and supports 260,000 direct jobs here in the state. And so, you know, outdoor recreation is really key. And we know that it's key to the recovery process as well. And this is why a program like Outdoor and Sea that Whit just introduced that we've been working on is so important, because we have to be really strategic about the way we take care of and protect our public lands and protect others' experiences on those public lands as well, because, you know, those lands and those experiences, that's the infrastructure of this $28 billion industry in our state. So we've seen with COVID that there's been huge interest in the outdoors and folks getting out at, you know, a great increased rate. And here's just a look at some of those numbers. So just some percentages. These are some of the top 5 industries that we've seen a growth rate in as far as outdoor recreation. And cycling, a 63% increase. I don't know if anyone listening in today has tried to get a bike over the summer. It's virtually impossible at this point. Bikes, boats, RVs have just been selling out so quickly. They're already into the 2021 sources. So really seeing that increase in demand for products and increase in getting outdoors. So 63% increase in cycling, 56 in paddle sports, 51% in golf. You know, we just mentioned the big golfing interest, you know, especially in Pinehurst and some big moves there. So 51% increase there. Camping, of course, 31%, and bird watching, just kind of getting out, nature sightings, getting on the trail, a 22% increase. So folks are getting out. That's like kind of the silver lining of everything that we've been seeing over the past several months. And that's great for our businesses. So these are just some numbers that were provided by North Carolina State Parks, and we've got 41 state parks, so I just kind of pulled a smattering of those. But to see that increase from June of last year to June of 2020, and in some of our parks, you can see there, Carolina Beach State Park, 103% increase, Mayo River State Park, a 214% increase in visitation. It's really just astounding, and it's exciting because for a lot of folks, this is the first time they've been in the outdoors, and we have this real opportunity to kind of bring them into the fold and keep them, you know, as lifelong users of the outdoors. But, you know, the flip side of that is the potential impact and also just the education that's needed with those new visitors of how to get out there, how to be safe, and how to recreate responsibly, and also take care of the places that they're traveling. So we'll go to the next slide there. So there have been some, you know, a lot of bumps in the road and a lot of obstacles over the past several months, but there's been some great things happening as well. And one of those is that's happened at the national level is the passage of the Great American Outdoors Act. And this was signed by the president in 2020, nonpartisan act. And it does a lot. It does 2 main things though. So one is that it's really going to address the deferred maintenance that we need on all of our public lands with our, you know, restrooms and facilities and parking areas and trails. So it gives funding to address those maintenance issues. And then the second thing it does is that it permanently funds the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which has been around for a while, but this permanent funding is really key for our industry. And the passage of this act, this is really the biggest conservation win in history for us. And it really affects our industry and our towns and our communities in a big way. So go to the next slide. So through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, while it really funds and impacts a lot of our federal lands, there's also a stateside assistance program with that provides funding for for parks that local governments can use, for trails, for greenways, to help with maintenance in some of our public lands that are closer to home as well. So this is something that I really encourage folks to look into. And it really has the opportunity to, you know, impact our towns and our communities that are gateways to outdoor recreation. And it prioritizes our investment in the outdoors, and that's going to provide jobs and access to the outdoors so that we have healthier communities as well. And just an example, I was reading an article, I think it was Smoky Mountain News last week. And when we think about, how these outdoor spaces impact our local economies, it was from Jackson County. They were saying that in their fiscal year that started this July, so July 2020, their TDA has pulled in a full 75% of its budgeted revenue for the entire year. So just in the past 3 months. And that's partly, I'd like to say, a good percentage due to the fact that they are surrounded by such great natural assets, and people are going to those areas to get outdoors. So we see that some of these communities that are gateway communities are really going to be able to rebound at a faster pace, as Whit kind of referred to earlier as well. All right. And then this just to give a breakdown of some of that funding over the past 5 decades, where some of that funding has gone from LWCF money. And you can see the state program down there in the far right corner, $87 million to that stateside assistance program, and $264 million as a whole to the state for national lands, as well as state parks and local municipalities as well. All right. So I want to highlight just some things that are going on in the state and some great programs that we're working towards. So there's the Great State Trail Plan that some of you may have heard of, and I'm sure some of you are involved in as well. And this program is being led by the NCDOT. And what it is it says here, one network of trails, 100 counties. So this is a proposed plan to have a trail that connects all 100 counties in the state of North Carolina, which is really pretty phenomenal. We've seen with this pandemic, as people were told to stay home, stay close to home, but to get outdoors, and stay healthy. There's a lot of our communities that don't have easy access to the outdoors, and they don't have, a park within 10 minutes or within walking distance. So things like the Great State Trail Plan will hopefully help with those issues of access, so that we can kind of work to that goal of making sure that all of our citizens have easy access to outdoor recreation. And if any of you have been to any of our, local trails or greenways, you can see the economic development potential along the way. Yes, it's people getting outdoors, but people are going to stop and get, coffee and maybe breakfast before they hit the trail, and they're going to come off the trail and grab a beer. And I know when we would take our son when he was younger, we'd stop and get a popsicle along the way on our bike trips as well. So that potential, it just grows and grows and grows as we create these trails across the state. So another thing, I think either Ryan or Jason mentioned, that we're working to grow the amount of businesses that we have in the state. And someone mentioned Triple Lot Designs that just moved here from California. They just announced they're moving to McDowell County, and they'll have 70 jobs that they're bringing there. McDowell County as well. We just saw Kitspo move there this time last year. So that area is really growing and seeing interest in outdoor recreation businesses. We also had a WorldCat expansion in Pitt County that was announced in August. So our industry within the state is growing, as well as we're recruiting in new businesses. And one way we're helping small businesses within the state that are focused on outdoor recreation industry is through programs like the one that's on the screen now, which is the Waypoint Accelerator Program. This one is based out of the Asheville, North Carolina area, but because we're going online this year with it, there's the opportunity to work with small businesses across the state, and really we're going to prioritize North Carolina businesses, but we will open it up nationwide. But this is really an opportunity to help these small entrepreneurial businesses get off the ground and create programming and mentorship to really help get them started and send them on their way to grow successful businesses here in the state. And that application process for the next cohort has just started. The application process ends in early November. So if you know a business in your area that might benefit from going through this program, definitely check into it. Now's the time. And next slide. Another initiative that we have going is our annual Outdoor Economy Conference. This is another thing that we're doing. It comes out of North Carolina, but it's on the national level. And we're doing these things to really remind folks across the nation that North Carolina is the hub of the outdoor recreation industry in the nation. And so this one, it's happening right now. We've moved to a virtual conference this year, and we put it out every Thursday. We've been able to bring in national speakers to be, on stage with all of our North Carolina local leaders as well. And you can see some of the 5 areas of focus. We have 2 more sessions this year. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about next generation outdoors, and then next Thursday, building outdoor communities. So if you're interested in that, definitely check into it. I know it's late this year. You can still see all of the sessions, but you can also keep it on your radar for next year. And lastly, we are just encouraging folks to get out, but to do it in a safe way. There is a national initiative called the Recreate Responsibly Initiative that North Carolina folks here have been on the forefront of as well. And really just reminding folks to go outdoors, but when you do, you still have to be safe. You still need to wear a mask. You need to, be prepared that the place you plan to go might be closed with this increased interest. A lot of our state parks are having to close the gates early. So, have a plan B, have a backup plan, be sure you're going to leave no trace. And then also reminding folks that the outdoors is for everyone. It's a place for you, no matter your background, where you're visiting from, the color of your skin. It is an inclusive place, and we want everyone to feel welcome in the outdoors. So I encourage, that's kind of my call to action to all of you as well, is to get outdoors and have fun and be safe. So thanks so much for taking time to listen today. And I think.
Yeah, I saw we had a really good question. Somebody had asked, NC has never had a large enough conference center on the coast to be able to handle the many statewide industry and nonprofit organizations for annual meetings. Why is that, and is anyone working on that? And I couldn't agree with you more. We host an annual state tourism conference every year, and for years we couldn't host it on the coast because it was too big. But I will say Wilmington in the last 3-4 years has put together actually I guess it's been 5 or 6 now, a fantastic convention center right on their coastline to do. And so if you haven't experienced the Wilmington Convention Center, you really should. It's a great place to host an event. They can host fairly large size events, and they've added several hotels nearby recently to help with that. Part of the problem, I think, is our beaches and our coast are so different than everywhere else. While it's an advantage to leisure travel, it's a disadvantage to meetings and conventions. We don't have a lot of those big hotels that allow the room nights to have the conference facilities. But I would also say, if you haven't tried it, New Bern is a great place to host a convention. They have a really good sized convention center. They've had some issues in the past with having enough hotels nearby, and the last hurricane had done some damage to that area, and their sites were out for a little while. But I definitely recommend giving New Bern a shot as well. If you do have a state organization that is looking for a place to have a meeting, please shoot me an email and we'll help you find a spot in the state. My email is wit@visitnc.com.
Thank you, Whit and Amy, for your presentation today. We greatly appreciate it. We do have a few minutes. If we have any other questions that anybody participating today would like to ask of Whit or Amy, I'll wait for a second, see if anybody posts any questions, excuse me. I will just say I'm very interested to see the long-term effects of folks that are working remotely now, that are coming to vacation areas, tourist areas, and are taking up temporary residencies. I know several people in the coastal community that have their Airbnbs or VRBOs are just extremely booked and doing very well, and people are just living remotely right now, and it's having an effect, and I think it's putting a lot of pressure on our housing market locally as well.
I think too, it speaks to the need for broadband in communities, particularly rural communities. This is really an opportunity, I think, in some ways for rural communities to be more successful, but you really have to have that you've got to have the connection for people to be able to get on and do meetings and pull some bandwidth. So hopefully we'll
Absolutely.
have that.
Great point. Let's see. This question comes from Ms. Pat Mitchell. Would you repeat the loss to the state due to COVID? I don't know if that was, I guess, specifically for tourism.
Yeah, I can talk about the spending. So welcome, Dr. Mitchell. It's great to hear from you. That we've lost $8.6 billion in visitor spending just from March 1st until now. Generally, the state gets about $26 or $27 billion in visitor spending, and we've lost about 8.6 of that. Now that translates into about $300 million in losses of state tax revenue just from visitors, and over 200 million in local tax revenues from municipalities and counties in visitor tax revenue. Now that's just the visitor spending that's lost. And I think in a lot of ways, individual in-state local spending has dropped as well. So it's going to be quite the challenge for us from a fiscal standpoint, not just from the state, but from local and county level too, to make up for those budgets. And so you're liable to see lots of impact down the line from it.
Very good. Thank you, Whit. Amy, a question for you from Blake Moyer. Could you speak a little more about the Great Trails Plan, and is this a funding opportunity going forward?
Yeah, thanks, Blake. So the Great Trails Plan, like I said, it's supposed to connect all 100 counties, and the plan is to use as many of the existing trails that are there and then figure out those connection pieces that need to be created along the way. So I think there is a funding opportunity, and we can look to things like Land and Water Conservation Fund and other grants that are out there to hopefully be able to fund this and really get that trail off the ground.
Okay, thank you. This comes from an anonymous attendee, and maybe that's because they're asking about national political interest. I want to know if y'all have any views on how the national political interest in our state is affecting our brand, and do y'all feel any of those? Do you feel any of those visit inquiries?
We get the complaints. We get the complaints on both sides, and we get to hear from both sides. Whether it's legislative issues that are going on in the state or presidential politics or local or state politics, we seem to be the repository for lots of complaints. I will say it typically doesn't impact the brand. I think people understand in a lot of ways that we're a swing state, and we try and position it as showing that, we're very reflective of what the country is as a whole. We're a diverse place that has a lot of different people that think different things. And yet we can all get along and have a great state. So it's typically an advantage to us. There are some times when something nasty happens that it can have an impact on us. But so far, I think our brand's held up pretty well.
Yeah, I'll just defer to Whit's answer on that one.
Very good. Well, that's the end of our questions. Seeing no more submitted, I want to thank you again, Whit and Amy, so much for sharing your insight with us. Looks like we've wrapped up. And again, we'd like to thank Whit and Amy for this important industry and the importance of it to our state. Again, I'd like to just say ECS is a proud sponsor of today's webinar, and always feel like a trusted partner with all of you across the state that are working in the economic development realm. And we've done great things over the years in North Carolina, and hope we can keep it going on. Before we let you go, we want to remind everyone that the 2020 Fall Conference and Site Selectors Summit will be held virtually next Tuesday, October the 27th. The morning program will serve as the NCEDA's Fall Conference with important presentations covering higher education and workforce development, reshoring opportunities for North Carolina and the future of the workplace. The Site Selector Summit will be held that afternoon and will offer the opportunity for attendees to directly engage with top site selection consultants from across the U.S. in a virtual small group setting. We currently have 21 consultants confirmed to be with us that afternoon. That's fantastic. Good work to the conference committee and also our management team for pulling that together. Visit the NCEDA website for more information or look for the email that Liz sent yesterday afternoon with all the conference details. We hope to have you join us next week for the conference, and in the meantime, stay connected, stay confident, and stay well. Thank you everyone for attending, and look forward to seeing you in person sometime, hopefully in the near future.